Hello, everybody. Welcome in to Dream Draft Rules Everything Around Me. My name is Chris Persiine, and you are watching Dream here on Knicks Film School. And I am here today to talk to all of you fabulous people uh, about you guessed it, 2023 NBA draft. Now, this is I just got to start it out. No pun intended. This is a fun draft class, and it's going to be a really, really big class to analyze, to talk about. I think we are going to love this journey of talking about this draft class. So let's do it. I think there's only one place to start. I know there's only one place to start when introducing this draft class, and that would be with um it would be with the top. And the reason I say that, there's two reasons. Number one, the top of this draft is ludicrously impressive. I really love a lot of the top prospects. My big board is currently about 12 players. There's currently about 12 players on my big board right now. I have it out from 1 to 12 rather. Um, and they're all really good. I think a player will go at number 2 overall that I potentially would have taken number 1 overall just last year. I think a player will go number 3 overall that I would take number 1 next year. So I think, when you take a look at this top of this draft class, it's fantastic. I think these guys are really good. Um, and they're going to be really good in the NBA. And so that's fun. But the other reason I think the only place to start with this draft class is in the top of the board is because after a certain amount of guys, I think you kind of hit that tier of upside shots a little sooner than you'd like. Now, top 14, 16, 18, all lottery worthy guys. Like, I think when all is said and done, and when I put out my first draft of my big board, there's going to be someone at 19th overall who I would have taken 14th last year, would take 10th next year. Like, that's just how this draft is. But there also might be someone at number 30 in this draft class who would have gone number 40 last year. And if that makes sense, I just think that once you get past the chunk, and Sam Vecini, the athletic friend of the draft class show, guest of episode 5 last year, I think that he spoke about this as well, that he's a little concerned with the quality of first rounder value return that you're going to get from the end of the first round. Now, the New York Knicks front office specifically has excelled at plucking value out of the end of that first round. If you ask me personally, Emmanuel Quickley and Quentin Grimes would indubitably be both in the top 10 in redrafts of their respective classes. And I think if you asked 30 GMs around the NBA, neither of them would go outside of the lottery on average. So the Knicks have been fantastic at finding value in those spots. And now that they've traded one of their first round picks in the Josh Hart deal, which we'll talk about as well, it really does, look like they'll kind of be camping there again, waiting for someone to fall to them. And I just think that there are enough guys out to the 18, 20, 21 range of this draft that are lottery caliber guys that someone could fall to this Knicks squad that looks like a young playoff ready squad. They could add another. And to me, I would think a wing would be what this team would be targeting. But let's talk about first laying some ground foundations. Let's talk about starting off evaluation of this draft class. So going into beginning my big board, I certainly was excited to do so. And I personally got started right with Victor Wembanyama. Now, this was the only place to start, in my opinion. And that's because Wembanyama is just such an otherworldly talent that I kind of had to deep dive. And this was months ago. The NBA featured a match between him and Scoot Henderson. And I had already loved Scoot from what I had seen of him last year, scouting some other guys in that program. So, this is a really strong 1-2 punch for me. And in my opinion, this 1-2 punch stacks up with any 1-2 punch of prospects that we've seen recently. Now, you got to think back. Rafael Barlow brought up a good point. Maybe Derrick Rose and Malik Beasley, the last 1-2 punch of prospects that had close to as much like juice and hype as these two guys. And a lot of people would tell you they would take this pairing over that pairing. In my opinion, this is going to be a very fun duo to watch grow throughout their career. I think they will, to no fault of their own, be compared to each other for a while, because they're so different. One is a athletic point guard, one is a kind of wiry center, and they're both the franchise changers. But that's my point here, is that I view both of these guys as franchise changing talents. I think Victor Wembanyama and Scoot Henderson each have the ability within them already and the potential within them to walk into a franchise and change that franchise's direction from day one. And to expand on that, I think Emmanuel Quickley and Quentin Grimes changed the direction of the Knicks, and I don't think they did so in a large way, but I think the two of them combined allowed the Knicks to be good in a way now that led to them dealing for someone like Hart, that has them playing at a 50-win pace since taking Cam Reddish out of the rotation and making the change to put McBride in. Now it's Hart. This Knicks team got ahead because it hit on its draft picks. And I think that Wembanyama or Henderson have that ability singularly, not Quickly plus Grimes, not hitting on 2 first rounders. I think one of these guys in your building accelerates your rebuild, or it kickstarts it, or it just really gives you a, what's better than blue chip? Like, I can't fathom speaking on Scoot Henderson for less than an hour and being happy with it, and that there's so much to rant and rave about that I feel like I'd be leaving out in discussing him, So as opposed to sitting here and ranting and raving about these two top guys, I will use this kind of as a soapbox to talk about how much of them I watched before putting them on my big board. And I mean this for prospects in general, because you guys are going to get updated big boards throughout the draft cycle for this draft class. Last year, I put out big boards, started with certain numbers, it's 10, then 14. And, I don't have exact dates for when those will come out for you guys, but no, I'm working hard behind the scenes on that. Always big board is out to 12 guys, as I said now. And the way you land on my big board is a couple things, a couple check marks have to be hit. So number one, I have to have seen 2 full games. Even if it's a clipped version of the game where it's every just minute that one player was on the court, I don't think that that's enough, because you need to see how their team looks without them on the court. You ever hear the saying? I know you have. You don't know what you got or had until you lose it. Well, yeah, it takes missing out on a player on the court to see what they really bring to their team, in my opinion. So, I think watching full games is really important to having a legit evaluation of someone. That's why 2 full games is the minimum to land on my big board. But that's one checkbox. Another checkbox is, 6 to 8 clipped versions of games. So I do watch those. I also like to watch the full version at some point. But if I've got 30 minutes before class, yeah, I'll check out a new prospect and watch 8 games of theirs in an hour, 4 and 30 minutes, as opposed to the full game to start. But watching, several 5, 6, 7 clipped games of all their touches, all their turnovers, assists, points, rebounds, steals, blocks, everything, their missed shots, right? Everything. I think that, as long as you're still watching full games, is a way to get somewhere. And then those 2 factors plus an interview, seeing a post-game interview, an interview online with, some of the great draft creators out there. Getting a look into how they see their own game, I think is really cool and helpful to evaluating a prospect. So just to land on my big board, I will not put someone on my big board until we're at that point, until we're at the point where, there is a real base of knowledge for me to go off of. I'm not projecting. I'm not taking 2 games and stretching them out to say, oh, this is what this guy is going to play like for the next 10 years. I can't do that. So for guys to land on my big board, I've got to see about 5 hours worth of them to start. And that's where we're at right now. So those 2 guys are first on my big board, Victor Wembanyama and Scoot Henderson. Now, I'm going to walk you guys through 3, 4, and 5. And then if you have any, questions, anything else you want to ask about, want me to just keep running through my top 10, we'll go ahead and do that. But as of right now, just plan for the next 10 minutes or so, just for this next, upcoming segment, is to just kind of run you guys through 3, 4, and 5 and my thought processes on those players. Like I said, yeah, David, great comment. Real ball knowledge is knowing that you don't know the future. Absolutely. If you think that you can watch 10 games of a college player and say exactly who they're going to be, I don't think anyone's that fantastic at evaluation that is evaluating prospects not for an NBA team. And I think a lot of people that work for NBA teams would also happily tell you that they have, not even half the knowledge they wish they had, or that some of their, peers in the industry have. There's always more to learn. And I think something you notice is people who don't change their evaluations. And this is not, these are not Twitter fingers. I'm not throwing subs at anyone here. I'm just saying, if you don't change your evaluation, if you are wrong on a guy and then don't, change it, I think that's selling yourself short of so much learning. I love missing on prospects and learning from them. Tyrese Halliburton and Sharif Cooper were 2 prospects I missed on evaluation wise. I had Halliburton at the end of the lottery. I don't think today that he's some franchise point guard. I do think that, him making an all-star game is no accident. I think he's really good at basketball. And so I think that when you take a look at him and how much better he is in the NBA than in college, there are certain factors like his handle and his pull-up shot that developed a lot faster than I thought they would for him. And that's a real big credit to him. Conversely, Sharif Cooper is someone who I had in the top 10, who has not panned out to that degree at all yet, or close to it. He hasn't panned out to a first round degree, and you could argue he's panned out to a top 45, 50 pick degree, which is where he went. So, I learned a lot from that evaluation too, and projecting and what I think will translate to an NBA level. I also, on the other hand of things, I'm also wary about overcompensating, right? If you were really low on Devin Booker and you didn't think that he was going to be anything special and he was just, another bench scorer, and now you have Nick Smith as the number 4th prospect in the draft because you're like, oh, he's Booker 2.0, he's going to be hero plus. He's overcompensating, adjusting is dangerous too. So just philosophically, there's so much to talk about when it comes to evaluations. There's so much to talk about when it comes to how you view prospects. There's so much to talk about in terms of how others view prospects and our thoughts on them. And that's what I really try to do here on Dream and on Draft Class, is highlight and bring to light a whole bunch of viewpoints and then kind of manage them and pick the path that I think, hey, this is how I see this guy and this is why. I really try to leave evidence out for you guys to build with, as opposed to, give you guys takes to, you must follow the takes. So yeah, let's get back to the board, and applying some of these principles, applying some of these debates to these prospects. And number 3 on my board, I have Amen Thompson. That's Wembanyama, Henderson, Thompson at 1, 2, 3. That's pretty chalk right there. But as someone who's really watched these three guys, I believe in them all three. And I do think Wembanyama and Henderson kind of have separated themselves from Thompson, but the phrase with Thompson that people seem to say the most, you talk to, Rafael Barlow, Prez, whoever it is, smarter people than Amen Thompson's a walking paint touch. Vicini, right? Like he's a walking paint touch. And if this kid can generate that much rim pressure with that much ease, there has to be something there to build on. And when you take a look at his otherworldly athleticism, when you take a look at the he's so twitched up, and just it comes down to, can he shoot? It comes down to, can he shoot? So Amen Thompson, a jump shot away from being in that top tier with Wembanyama and Henderson. I would say he's, that second tier for me. If Wembanyama and Henderson are superstar potential guys, I'd say Thompson is like the tippity top of the potential star tier under that for me. But I think he's the top for a reason. He's got a really good shot at panning out, if you ask me. And I think that he's so fun and he's so gifted to watch. Jonathan Wasserman in his mock draft today sent him to Charlotte to play with LaMelo Ball. And I just think that would be such a nuts thing to watch, going from watching Amen and his brother Ausar in the overtime league to the NBA with LaMelo Ball and Amen Thompson. I think would be fantastic. I also think Thompson could fit in really nicely on some other teams that are in need of just some raw initiation or another playmaker out there, especially if they have a lead guard that can pull above the break threes, space the floor out in that way. I think Thompson could be really good attacking secondarily to start out his career. I would say something that worries me with Thompson. A lot of people talk about the competition, and I do think that at a certain point you have to look at it like a math problem. If someone messes up at the start of a math problem, the teacher will remove points. But if they do the rest of the problem right, then they're still going to get partial credit. And that partial credit concept is what I'm talking about here with the Thompson twins in the overtime league. I think that, yes, it's absolutely important to look at Amen Thompson and Ausar Thompson's competition as suspect, as worthy of, further scoping. But I also think that it can be true that they're doing incredibly given those circumstances. And that's, what you expected of them in that level of play. I think especially Ausar, who we'll get to in a little bit, has been really good recently passing the rock. He really naturally defers to his brother Amen, the more natural playmaker of the two. But scouts out there have said that they see Ausar as being closer than people think. I've talked to someone who I really trust, someone else who's younger in the draft community, my guy D.R.E.A., if you know him, at A Charles on Twitter, for if you want to give him a follow. But he talked about how he didn't see as big of a gap between Amen and Ausar either. I think that's totally cool. Like, that's fine. To me, Amen elevated himself just with the potential of, this guy can make something happen every single play. He can make something happen, and it's natural. It's easy. I think that, there's just something to him being a gamer, having that feel, that other playerly. It's like not real, but it is. And so he's such a magician, such a wizard at the lead guard spot. I think Amen Thompson could really pan out in the NBA really well. But just the athleticism is really what I'm betting on, and that's what helps me separate him from other guys in the same tier as him. So, I would say I have 1 and 2, Wembanyama and Henderson, in the same tier. And after that, from 3 to 6 or 3 to 8, I have like my next tier. It's a lot bigger. And I think I'm ends at the top of that because of his unreal athleticism, his otherworldly athleticism, and just how spectacular he looks playing the sport of basketball. There's something to that when it's as natural as it is for him, and he's making his teammates better and playing well himself. It all comes together for me with Amen. I think he will struggle starting out in the NBA, as a lot of young guards do. I think he's really going to struggle, especially because of his frame. His finishing ability and his skill is great, but in the NBA, I think it's going to take him maybe just a couple months, but it will take some time in that rookie year at least to get acclimated to the larger rim protectors, the level of competition that's not really there in the overtime elite league. And I think that Thompson, both of them, the Thompson twins, will have to get used to finishing at the NBA level. If they want to do it consistently like they have in their kind of high school vibe level of competition. I think that you wish they played in more gritty scenarios, more situations in game where it felt like they had to produce. But there's just kind of this vibe that these kids are both going top 10 no matter what anyone says, because they're going to both walk into the league as, top 10 percentile athletes, or what is, 90th percentile athletes. Yeah. So we'll get to Ausar later. I think Amen's thing is really just he needs to shoot. But the athleticism, like I said, is why he is atop this portion of my board here. And that brings us perfectly to my number 4 prospect on my board. So Wembanyama, Victor, number 1, Scoot Henderson, number 2, Amen Thompson, number 3. And at number 4, I've got someone whose hype I really bought for a while now. Team USA games a couple months back over the summer, even just the start of Villanova's season was like, okay, we need this guy to get in now because we need him to get back now. I want to see him play. I really want to see him play. Cam Whitmore is number 4 on my board. He's playing on a rough team this year, first year head coach in Cal Neptune. Not exactly the best developing situation going on over there. But Whitmore is my number 1 NCAA prospect. And I think this is the case for a lot of people. And it's the reason that I had Amen up there too. Have Amen up there too is the athleticism. Whitmore to me looks like he's going to translate so easily. Knicks fans are very familiar with a 2/3 guard being really quick, closing out from the corners. Quentin Grimes and Fred Katz of The Athletic has written a great piece about this. Quentin Grimes has amazing speed when he cuts from the corner, when he finishes plays. It's like his kind of signature to drive in and dump it to the big. It's usually Mitchell Robinson. I think you've seen him do it a little less recently because Hartenstein and Sims are less conducive to that play than Robinson is with his style of, athletic dominance. But Whitmore isn't someone who reminds me of Grimes as a prospect in general, but the way that he attacks from the corner with his athleticism, I think gives him a role in his rookie season. He can stand in the corner, knock down open threes, attack closeouts, and dunk over larger defenders at the rim, finish through them. I think he's a kid who can bulk up nicely. And I don't want to say he reminds me of AJ Griffin, but he reminds me of he's like kind of my AJ Griffin of this draft, in the sense that I have him top 5. A lot of people do, a lot of people don't. But at the end of the day, I'm just rolling with the athleticism, and I'm trusting this wing athlete to pay off my bet. And the reason I really like Whitmore, I think the playmaking flashes are there. I think the defensive flashes are there with him. The athleticism just unlocks so much for this kid. He's really young, and there's everything is there to build off of, in my opinion. And if he can add a real nice in-between game, become a mid-range killer, I think that'll couple nicely with what has already been shown, which is his stellar talent, his finishing around the rim, his athleticism. His frame is fantastic. His frame is just great. And so when you look at Cam Whitmore, to me, you have a guy that you just want on your team. You want that young player to build around. You want him as part of your young core. And he's someone that, I'm not confident as of right now that he's the kind of prospect that teams would really trade up for. I think that would be more of Scoot Henderson, who I don't name Wembanyama because I don't think whoever has the number one pick will be willing to trade it unless a team like the Oklahoma City Thunder offers literally a Brinks truck worth of first round picks. That makes it so beyond worth it that they have to take it. I think that you look at, you know, the top of this draft and Henderson, maybe Amen Thompson, a little, risky to trade up for, but those are the guys that might move, that teams might move up for, or then a player like a Brandon Miller, who we'll get to in a little bit as well, that, has a lot of qualities that people see and they just go, yes, he can contribute now today. But yeah, Cam Whitmore is up there for me, and I really would bet on him. I would draft him very highly, as high as 4th overall. And I just think that he is a really great bet to take. And he raises the question to me almost like philosophically about the draft, with him and Brandon Miller. Do you take the known quantity, more of the known quantity, and Brandon Miller, someone with the skill, someone with the pace, someone who has a gorgeous, picture perfect jump shot? I didn't like it at first, and Prez kind of put me onto low releases not mattering if they make them, and I was like, okay, I am a high release guy. It's why I really liked Quentin Grimes as a prospect. I believe I had him like in the low 30s. I had Emmanuel quickly in the first round though, and he had a lower release in college, so that's all right. You just got, if you're good, you're good. And Brandon Miller is really good, but Cam Whitmore's potential could be greater than Miller's potential slash the points he gets for being really good today. And so that's why, if you ask me, Cam Whitmore is my number one NCAA prospect. It's because I'm just so in on him as an athlete, but I also really think he's a good basketball player, and can be a really, really good basketball player. I'm not going to throw Jaylen Brown out there as a comparison because I think it's off, but in terms of long term, how you view him as part of your team building, like I think Whitmore could be a guy that, oh, he's, top 30, top whatever in the NBA, and you top 25, you really have to max him or what. Like, I think he can be a really important part of your team building. I think he can be a number 2 wing on a really, really good team. Or the best wing if they have, like an Embiid or Jokic, or I guess it would be someone else in a couple of years. But yeah, Whitmore is fantastic to me. And so I've got him number 4 on my board. About half an hour in here to Dream. Want to thank you guys for tuning in. Share, thumbs up, whatever it is you want to do. Appreciated. But most appreciated to me, honestly, are your comments and your interaction. Getting to talk and hang out with you guys is the best. So as we move on, I will now give the number 5 prospect on my big board. Number 1, Victor Wembanyama. Number 2, Scoot Henderson. Number 3, Amen Thompson. Number 4, Cam Whitmore. Number 5, Jarace Walker out of Houston. Yes, Jarace Walker, very polarizing and lots of debates. I'm just going to start out and say I'm a big fan of considering the high school sample as part of who he is. He didn't share the ball as much as high school. He didn't share the ball as much in high school, and as a result, was doing a little more playmaking. And I think that is within him. Now, I know he's playing with some really good players at Houston. One of them is Marcus Sasser, who, well, not today. We will definitely not get to Marcus Sasser today, but we will be talking about him at some point because he's really fun. he has some guards to do some playmaking for him now. And so Jarace is playing a little bit more of what I think might look like his NBA role. But we're seeing him do lots of things that lottery picks do and that top picks do. And that to me is because he is one of those guys. You look at who Jarace is as an athlete, and I think he was even a better athlete in high school. That burst not 100% with him right now, um, but I think he might still be recovering. We'll see if this ages poorly, and maybe I'll adjust and speak differently on it. But there's always like AJ Griffin last year. I thought wasn't playing with his full pop because he was still getting used to recovering from his injury and playing, having gotten injured before like that. I think Jarace might be going through something similar. Overall, I just think Jarace is super translatable to the NBA, especially the modern one. He's switchable defensively. I trust him to guard 2 through 5, small ball fives, definitely. And for me, the offensive side is really easy because I just think it's one of those, like, I'm looking for a pen to hold here. I just think it's one of those, can he make open threes? Check. Okay. Defenses have to close out on him. Keep honest, right? I believe in Jarace's shot. So if they're closing out on him, does he have the athleticism to take them off the dribble? Yes. Okay. Does he have the build and the frame and the strength to bump them off of him as he attacks baseline and puts up a shot? Oh, he's super strong. Oh, he's actually brawlic. Oh, okay. Double check there. Um, uh, can he do something other than just go up strong at the rim? Oh, he has arguably the best floater game in in the whole draft class? Oh, check, 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 check. Oh, well, hold on, hold on. I got you now. Jarace Walker can't pass. He can't play. What's that? He can run pick and roll as a 4-man. He can run pick and roll as a small ball. Oh my God. Check, 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 check. This guy is just fantastic to me. And I'm a lot higher on him than a lot of people right now. There's a lot of guys out there, a lot of gals out there with Jarace, number 13, number 15. Stock is flying up to me. I really, really like Jarace Walker. I did a breakdown over on TikTok a while back on his floater game, and I've just been so on top of him as a prospect. I really think he's just good. He's just good. And he's going to translate in the NBA, in my opinion, as someone who can, from the jump, like Whitmore, attack closeouts, can make his open shots, can, kind of tread water offensively, and then really show you why he's out there on the defensive side. But as he grows throughout his career, add more things to his offensive game. He's made several fadeaway jumpers this year. Is that going to be something that's in his bag of tricks down the line against longer NBA defenders? Maybe, maybe not. But what I do know is that the floater touch cannot be removed. And I think that will translate to his 3-point shooting, which is already somewhere. Can be a little higher volume, but a couple years back, I remember I was looking at guys like Jeremy Grant, Julius Randle, Christian Wood, and they all just kind of were league average from 3 on a low amount of attempts per game. And it's like they were still getting their job done on the inside. Now, Randle, of course, has become a much more perimeter oriented player, and Christian Wood, still an average shooter, so I think you look at these guys, they get by. Jarace doesn't need to be a sniper. He just needs to hit the open shots. And that's why that was a check mark to me. I think the free throw percentage, the 3-point percentage, just get to average. I think he'll be all right from there. And that's all you need, because what he does in the other aspects of the game is just spectacular, spectacular stuff. So I'm a really big fan of Jarace Walker. That's why he's number 5 on my big board coming out of Houston. I'm really big on his defense, and I'm pretty big on his offense. Combine those two, and we didn't even talk too much about his defense. He's a wrecking ball, man. Jarace is not someone that I would stick out on I always think of Carmelo Anthony, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, but nowadays it's probably Jason Tatum, other wing players, Jason Tatum, Paolo Banchero, guys like that. But I don't think I would deploy Jarace as a one-on-one stopper in those situations. I would not use Jarace the way that the Toronto Raptors use OG Anunoby, for example. Just go and stick him on a guy. But I think I would love to use Jarace Walker as Robert Covington. I think I would use Jarace as Malcolm Jenkins, like a free safety, you know? I think that he can go out there and wreak havoc defensively, especially off the ball. He's got great instincts, and he's really fun to watch on that end of the floor. So, uh, you ask me, he's a top 5 prospect for me today. I think he is great. I really, really, really like that kid. Um, so yeah, there's the top 5 of my big board. That's how it stands right now. Oh, just hit my knee very hard. Um, that's where we're at. Number 1, Victor Wembanyama. 2, Scoot Henderson. 3, Amen Thompson. 4, Cam Whitmore. And 5, Jarace Walker. That is where we're at with the top 5 on my big board as it stands today. So, any questions from you guys on those 5 players? Any questions from you guys just philosophically on how you think they'll fit on different teams? Let me know. I'll check out the comments section. In the meantime, I'll make some comments about who's number 6 on my draft board. And as of right now, that is the other shoe dropping from the Thompson family, Ausar Thompson. He's number 6 on my draft board as of right now. So Jarace Walker 5, Ausar Thompson 6. And yeah, that's pretty high for Ausar. But I think he's going to be really good. And the word that screams Ausar to me is connector. But what's cool about him is he's super twitched up the same way that Amen is. Now, he's not as twitched up. I shouldn't have said the same way because that was definitely an exaggeration. But he's in the same upper echelon of athletes. Now, Amen, if he walks into the NBA, a top 5% athlete, might be understating it. I think Ausar walks into the NBA, a top 15% athlete. That might be understated. Maybe Amen's top 3%, and Ausar top 10. Let's see. 450 jerseys times 5%. 22 and a half. Yeah, no. Let's go Amen Thompson, top 3 to 4% athlete in the league, and Ausar like top 10, top 8%. So yeah, these kids, these twins are freakishly athletic. And I think that when you evaluate them in the overtime league, yes, it's tough and whatever, but something that really stands out to me with Ausar is despite the fact that he's not playing in an uber competitive league or anything, he's always making winning plays. He's always sacrificing himself out there. What's really stood out to me is his connective passing. He doesn't always need to get the assist. He doesn't need to be super involved. I just think he's always making the right plays. And in a very converse opposite way, he reminds me of Obi Toppin offensively in the sense that, and I'm talking about in the NBA, Obi Toppin, in the sense that when he has the ball, he has such a good knowledge of what the guys are doing out there that he can just make a smart play. All his passes are positive. All his passes advance the play in some way. All his passes help someone else. And so I don't think that those two, Ausar and Obi, are good comparisons at all, but I just do think this is Knicks Film School. Can help you guys a little bit from a Knicks perspective, talking about uh, things you've seen on the court a lot and how they translate. So Obi's always making smart passes because he really understands what's going on the court. And Ausar is the same way. You can pass it to him and he'll get it right to someone for an assist if he can see them, and he usually does. But he's also an insane athlete, and he can also kind of shoot it. Not really, but catch and shoot like should exist in the league. I think he'll be able to catch and shoot open threes in the league. Hopefully for him, uh, three attempts a game, by the time he's a starter, if he is one. But like Ausar Thompson's the guy that just screams like this Toronto Raptors team to me. I feel like the San Antonio Spurs would be all over him. There are just a lot of teams that I think Ausar Thompson would really fit well on as someone to be part of the young core, as someone to help lift the other guys in the young core up, as someone to help lift both the offensive and defensive floor and ceiling of the team that he's on eventually. But I do think coming into the league, he's definitely going to lower the offensive floor of his lineups that he's in. And I think that, a lot of that needs to be addressed in regards to his finishing. Ausar a little more bulked up than Amen, so you can trust his finishing more than Amen's. But I think both of them need to. I think both of them need to get better in that regard. And we'll see how they translate. It's tough for me to leave it just at that, but yeah, we will see how they translate at the NBA level. I'm certainly excited to. Let's take a look at your comments. Who's a guy you can see realistically falling to the Knicks with the Mavs pick that I like? Yeah, I think this is a good place to take an intermission from my top 10. Talk about two players that I can see falling to that pick that I like. Let's see. Number one, probably Maxwell Lewis, Pepperdine. He screams Walt Perrin. He has the length. He has the production. He really seems like someone that Walt Perrin would love and see as a player who can produce now as well as have upside to produce at a much higher level in the future. And Max Lewis, to me, soon might like he might be in my top 10 today on my personal big board. Um, I don't know if I'm there yet. He might be 11 today out of the 12 guys that I have on my board. He might be 10, but he's really good. And I think that Maxwell Lewis is one of those guys who, and I hate this. Um, I know every wing that's long gets compared to Paul George, and it's like the worst thing. Um, but I do think that Maxwell Lewis isn't the worst thing to look at with Paul George, Fresno State, Maxwell Lewis, Pepperdine. I think there might be something there. This is not to say that, Maxwell Lewis is my number one pick in the draft, because he's certainly not. But I do think that there's a universe exists for my Marvel fans out there seeing the ads for the trailers for the upcoming movies. I think there's a multiverse out there where Maxwell Lewis is picked number 17 overall and ends up being a top 5 player in the draft class. I think that can happen. So he's someone who could fall, that I think could end up being really good. Someone else who could fall that I think could end up being really good is Jalen Hood Schifino, Indiana. I think that he makes decisions really quickly, and that really appeals to me. Actually, some of you guys are talking about him in the comments here. Dirty Dancer. Fargo Tufo. Yeah, Fargo, totally. Hood Shafino. I think that kid is great. He's really fun. He's like a kick-ass kind of player. One of those dogs you want on your team. But I also do think that the Knicks have a lot of players in Brunson, Quickly, Grimes, Barrett, and Josh Hart that kind of make it hard for me to project him getting any playing time. So Hood Shafino, I could see falling to the Knicks range, and I really like him. But to answer your question, Kevin, I'm not sure I would, for the Knicks, I'm not sure I would take him. Oh, we got a super chat. Let's read this one out. Fargo Tufo with the super chat. Thank you for that, Fargo. The question on Knicks draft philosophy: do you ever see them drafting someone more raw to develop, or do you see them targeting the high floor role player types? That's a great question, Fargo. Thank you again for asking. Thank you again for watching. Your support is super appreciated. So thanks for the super chat. And to answer your question, I think the Knicks have established themselves as having a type in the draft. I think that type has more to do. Obviously, we know pull up shooting, spot up shooting is a big thing. Just when you look at the data, a lot of Nick acquisitions rank really highly on spot up shooting, pull up shooting graphs, pull up shooting particularly. Alec Burks, Evan Fournier, Kemba Walker, um, Jalen Brunson. You know, these Emmanuel Quickly, Quentin Grimes. These guys kind of all play into that category. But to me, the Knicks type is high character guys, guys that they think love basketball, guys that they think love getting better at basketball, guys that they think want to be part of a winning organization and can be part of the Knicks family. On the business side of things, guys that they think that are worth betting on and trusting to develop and return trade value at some point or return value of their draft pick. Like they draft guys. To me, it seems like the Knicks draft players that obviously you draft a player you believe in, but they believe in for reasons other than, oh, he has a cool jump shot. I don't want to turn this into a negative thing, so I'm not going to name names of players that the Knicks, haven't drafted. I'm sure maybe they liked some of the guys I'm thinking about, but um, there are players popping off across the league right now, young players getting a lot of hype, young guards that are putting up tons and tons of points per game recently, that just, off the court don't seem like leaders or don't seem like people who love getting better at basketball or, had issues off the court in college or somewhere else. And so I think that has to all be baked into it. And I think that when you when you got who I was talking about, Fargo. When you are thinking of most, but it really matters to the Knicks, in my opinion, that these guys like Emmanuel Quickly had to get locked out of Kentucky gyms. We talked about this last year on Draft Class because I love my sickos, right? I love guys that are psychos that want to get better no matter what. And Quickly's one of those guys. And it's no surprise that he's a great fit at Madison Square Garden, So that is like the ground level of answering your question. And now to actually answer your question, I will say I do think the Knicks like guys that can come in and play a role, and help the team win games from day one. And then can develop later to be even better. For example, Quentin Grimes plays a role right away. He's doing what he's doing right now, not getting any offensive sets ran for him. He just goes out there, plays within the flow of the game. Had a rough game recently. Obviously, the Hart acquisition, he's playing a little less minutes. Maybe it's tough on him. Maybe it threw him off his kilter. But to me, he's played a fantastic all year because he's been a star in his role. Josh Hart is a star in his role. Emmanuel Quickly is a star in his role as the sixth starter of the team. In my opinion, guys who are stars in their roles, like Alec Burks, like, man, Mitchell Robinson is a star in his role nowadays. Like guys who just really go at what their job is and kill it. Taj Gibson, a star in his role. Jeremiah Robinson Earl was a player who I compared to Taj Gibson a little bit in the sense that, like, I think he would just love the dirty work. And, you see these Nova guys, how they pan out. That's why I thought of him. I just think like that stuff is worth considering. So when you look at, guys' track record in college, did they produce, right? Obi Toppin produced in college and had a chance to come into the NBA. The Knicks are using him as a perimeter oriented player, which arguably is not the best for his development, but it could be. It's definitely not the best for his production right now, but you could certainly argue it's best for his development, if you wanted to. So I think that, that's a mixed bag, but pretty much every single other prospect is just doing what they were really good at in college in the NBA, and they're ending up really good at it. Quickly has grown a lot, and so that development curve is great to see. But everyone else, even Jericho Sims, just being athletic, just doing what he does. And so I think the Knicks like guys that can come in and just fill a role. And that's why, Max Lewis, I think he has a lot of potential. I think he has a lot of room to grow. But I also think he can come in and knock down the open shots. I think he can take the ball to the rim and attack an open lane. I think he can be a smart defensive team player out there and use his length intelligently. there's both sides of it. And I'm not trying to fall into the, Dave Gettleman cliche of, oh, well, we're going to win now and we're going to rebuild at the same time. And then you end up doing neither. The Knicks have actually effectively been doing both for the last several years, despite, it being said that it's impossible to do so. So when you look at them hitting on their picks, and like I discussed earlier, Grimes and Quickly really helped with that. That helps that aspect of that. All right. Now, let's get back to my big board. Number 1, Victor Wembanyama. Number 2, Scoot Henderson. Number 3, Amen Thompson. Number 4, Cam Whitmore. Number 5, Jarace Walker. Number 6, Ausar Thompson. At number 7, this is where I've got Brandon Miller as of right now at the number 7 slot on my board. Miller, someone who's going to come in right away, can shoot the pill, open or contested. Brandon Miller can make 3-point shots. He can make pull-up mid-range shots. Miller reminds me a little bit of Devin Vassell in the sense that he just goes out there and is very boring about how he does the very exciting things that he goes out there and does. It's not like his game is boring. He just has like a boring flavor to a very exciting game. And it's like a very cool style. And it makes Miller fun to watch. So, a lot of people have Miller as a top player in the draft. He's not in my top 5 personally. As he's here at number 7 as of right now. And I'd say the reason for that is really just about these other guys more than about him. They bring a little less to the table now than Miller might on a game-to-game basis in terms of how good they actually are. But I definitely think that their potential makes the conversation different. I definitely think that their athleticism, which weighs into their potential, is the biggest factor of it all. For me, Brandon Miller does not have that athletic pop, that vertical pop, that lateral twitch. Even someone like Stephen Curry, who I think is an underrated athlete, because even though he doesn't have the vertical pop to dunk over guys like a guard the same height as him, like Donovan Mitchell, he does have the lateral horizontal athleticism, the twitch that enables him to move so insanely adeptly in small, tight spaces. I think that Brandon Miller kind of lacks that aspect, and that's something that's hard to teach. But the things that you can teach, he's already really, really good at. And I think on the court, you just like to see him do it at the NBA level. Like, you're just hoping it translates, because what he does at the college level is so easy to fit into an NBA role. It's so easy to see him as a wing that will just go out there, get you buckets, go out there, be part of the offense and keep things moving and be a real threat to break down defenses and score on them. I think Brandon Miller has a chance to be really good. That's why he's so high up on my board. I just don't buy as much of the hype as a lot of other people do with him. And I think that that's because those tiny little millimeters of space that he doesn't create matter. And yes, tough shot making is super important, and it rules the NBA world. But you see prospects like Johnny Davis, who I was super high on last year, really struggle to start their career because the tough shot making was how they compensated for not being able to create separation, get to their spots with ease at the NBA level. Even if they could do it in college, will they be able to do it at the NBA level? Yeah, I think Brandon Miller will be able to get to his spots and score. But against every defender on a night-to-night basis, he might not bring that same star-level consistency that he definitely brings to the college game, where he is a night-in, night-out superstar, at the NCAA level. So, yeah, that's worth talking about to me, worth considering. I think that when you take a look at Miller and who he is, I think that it's just a really good player. He is fun, but it's this, like I said at the start, it's this like boring flavor that makes it more fun. I'm scared to throw out the name Kawhi Leonard because everyone's going to freak out. Oh my God, Chris compared Brandon Miller to Kawhi Leonard. No, I didn't. Stop that. But what I did say is that they bring this similar vibe to the game that's like, hey, I'm about to drop 28 on your head top on like 12 for 20 shooting. and it's going to look really easy, and you're going to be mad about it. The other team's like, ha, yeah, all right, man. You know, and then they're down 74-59, and Brandon Miller has 32, and they're just like, I have a test tomorrow morning. I got a lab on Friday, and it's Wednesday afternoon, and I just got absolutely scorched by a 19-year-old. Oh my God. You know, like I think Miller brings that aspect to his game that's just so boringly fun. Um, I also think that there's just that uh that concern that he is not going to pop the way that a guy like a Whitmore or either Thompson twin or a Walker might, because of their athleticism and what that can help them unlock now and later in terms of their games. Um, all right, all right. Let's uh, let's keep things moving. Let's keep things rolling. Uh, and get to number 8 on my big board, Keontae George. So Wembanyama, Henderson, Amen Thompson, my top 3. Whitmore and Walker round out 5. Ausar Thompson, Brandon Miller, Keontae George, 6, 7, 8. Keontae George at a Baylor, really, really fun player at the top of this draft class. Um, Prez talks to me all the time about how he wants to put him in that like upper tier with like a Whitmore or an Amen Thompson. But I would definitely say that I agree with Prez in that, you probably have Wembanyama and Henderson. Then there's Amen Thompson, Cam Whitmore. Arguably, I would put Jarace Walker in there too. Um, and you could say Ausar Thompson. I think he's kind of existing between those tiers for me right now. Um, but then there's a next tier down of Brandon Miller, Keontae George, and the next 2 guys I have up on my board. Keontae George is a load of fun. And I'm saying that about a lot of guys at the top of this class, but I said at the beginning, there's a lot of fun players in the lottery here. So, it's just really easy for me to say that a bunch and feel like I'm repeating myself, but I mean it every time. Uh, George is a gamer. He is one of those guards that goes out there and looks like a quarterback in the way that he reads the game. But I will say it's non-traditional. Maybe in the spirit of Jalen Hurts being in the Super Bowl and the rise of and even Mahomes 44 rushing yards in the Super Bowl. It feels like Keontae George is a quarter. Like if Jalen Suggs was a quarterback that did a little rushing, it feels like Keontae George is like a really, really rushing quarterback in the sense that he doesn't get the assists to rack up in a way that, a All right. Sorry about that. Our streaming program here must not have liked the take I was getting off. because it ended it. But now we're back. So apologies for that. But we are back here on Dream Live on the Knicks Film School YouTube, discussing the 2023 draft class as we were. We were talking about the top 10 of my big board, and we were on number 8, Keontae George out of Baylor. Discussing Keontae, I made a deal out of his ability to play out there and just look like he has a real nice control over the. All right, we return again. Um, Speaking on Keontae George, what he's able to do out there on the court for those Bearsler. All right, I tried, I failed. The Baylor Bears, what he's able to do out there, and first of all, he's a fantastic shooter. So George's shooting is spectacular, and that is something that shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. He's just really great at getting his game off. Um, now you take a look at the assist numbers, like we talked about. He's not always out there um, diming and making highlight reels of assist plays, but I do think that he passes the ball intelligently enough when he does that it makes you confident enough in that ability of his to say, yeah, this guy can be a secondary creator in the NBA, because I trust him to get his game off and find other teammates, get them involved. Uh, and I think that I think that I you know I I struggle so much with wanting to put him higher. Um, but for me, he's here because he just has to show more defensively. He has to show the motor is there. But on top of that, I think that he has that man, he just has that it factor. He has that it factor, and it's something that you can't outweigh. You can't ignore. And it's like, Tyrese Maxey is a very different player to him. Maxey was smaller, quicker, uh, more gutsy, right? But George reminds me a little bit more of, I want to say, like Markelle Fultz, and obviously not that good because college Markelle Fultz was going to be the number one prospect over Jason Tatum for a reason, or was the number one pick over Jason Tatum for a reason. But I do think that George gives me that vibe of bigger guard that can control the tempo out there just by kind of exacting his will on the defense. And he has those star flashes, those star vibes, that I think will just make a team really happy for investing in him. Um, in the comments, my comp for Keontae is Eric Gordon. Yeah, that's really fun. Eric Gordon's old now, but he was really good back in the day, and I think he's really good now still. I actually love that acquisition for the Clips at the deadline. Um, that comp is fun. I like that. Uh, I won't give my comps. I'll hide from those for now. So at number 9 and 10 on my board, I'll give a quick rundown of each guy before we get out of here. Number 9, I've got Jet Howard, twitchy wing, sniper, son of Jawan over at Michigan. I think he's got the ability to go out there and be a guy that teams can rely on for buckets in a playoff series, or that can space the floor for star players. I don't think he's someone you give the ball to and say, hey, go create offense for us every time down the court or even super often. But I do think he's someone that will be worth a lottery pick. And he's twitched up and he can shoot. And for me, those two things, like, he's got them down. You take him top 10, you figure it out later. Now, I do think that as I further evaluate guys like Nick Smith Jr. and Maxwell Lewis, other prospects in this lottery range, I do think Jet Howard is a candidate to slip. down a little bit. But for right now, where I'm at right now, he's number 9 on my big board. And then tied for number 10 on my big board are Maxwell Lewis and Nick Smith Jr. We talked a little bit about Maxwell Lewis earlier, so let's talk about Nick Smith now. Nick Smith, Arkansas, hurt this season, came back, rough first game back. So let's look at the earlier games. Really fun player, really good off the ball scorer. Jordan Poole, a name that comes up for me now. Poole, a very different prospect from Smith, but both kind of struggle with their handle, right? And Smith just looks to me like a guy that's going to attack off closeouts, kill. He's got the pull-up jumper. He's got the he's got the umph. He's got the umph on the offensive end. Can that be a stat? His umph per 40. He's got it. He's got the umph. And his dog in him percentage is high. I think that we're getting a little silly as we end the hour here on, or more than an hour, but as we start to wind down the show here on Dream, I just think Nick Smith is one hell of a dog out there on the court, and that Tyler Hero, who Ben Pfeiffer brought up as a comparison, or Jordan Poole, my comparison that I'll throw you guys a comparison before we get out of here. Are two guys that just, yes, Nick Smith can come up big in a playoff series. He also might have a chance to look really bad for 10 straight regular season games and make you have to really keep betting on him and hope that he'll get better. Smith lower in the top 10 for me, because although I do think that he can be a stud level combo guard, I don't trust him to fully initiate offense, nor do I think he's a lockdown fantastic defender. I just think he's a good one who wants to be a good one, and that's really appreciated. But there's enough like little knocks for me that just get him below these other guys who are so great. Nick Smith is Dinwiddie to me, man. I love your takes today, dude. You're killing it in the chat. So not sure. I want to look more into that, but just the style of play, I hear you on that. For me, I think Hero and Poole are mine, but I really hear you on the Dinwiddie comp. And so, yeah, that's my top 10 for right now. I'm going to have a graphic come out soon once I get my board to like 18 to 20 guys, and I'm more confident in my 10. I'll put out the 10. Once I get my board to a full first round, I'll give you guys the lottery. Hopefully that'll be in a couple months. You'll get lottery. The top 10, maybe early March. We'll see when that comes. But stay tuned here on Knicks Film School for more episodes of Dream. I think they will be important to stay tuned into as little prequels, as little precursors to season 2 of a certain beloved off-season program. So, with that being said, if I did not address your favorite prospect, we're going to get to him. If I did not address a prospect that you asked about in the comments, I'm going to get to him. If I did not address a prospect that you tweeted at me about, I'm sorry. I will get to him. So we're going to talk a lot more about these draft prospects, but I thought, why not start out with 70 minutes talking about my personal top 10 guys in the class as of right now, give you guys an introduction to the 2023 draft class, give you guys a reintroduction to me and how I evaluate draft prospects, how I like to talk about them. And I just missed you guys. So, missed my draft community here on YouTube. We had about 100 of you in here the whole time, and I really appreciate that. You guys are crazy. You're the best. And I hope you all have amazing Valentine's Day evenings. Of course, my Valentine's is the NBA draft. So I am here on Dream sharing and expressing my love for the NBA draft. But for those of you tuning in later, because you were being a normal person and you were out to dinner or something of the sort, I hope you had a nice time. And thanks for tuning in now, even after the show happened. So thanks to everyone who listened live or not. And you're very much appreciated here on Knicks Film School. Chris Persianen signing off. I'll see you guys soon.